Kalispera and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on the backs of two games that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk first about Everton at the weekend, which I'm probably pretty sure no one wants to really talk about, but we're going to. And of course, we're going to talk about the thrilling victory against Oxford in the Carabao Cup, which happened yesterday evening. We'll also look ahead to City, take your questions, because we are, of course, live this evening. But before we dive into our content, let's see who we've got on the show tonight. We welcome Joseph Sayers. How are you, my friend?
Thomas Budgeon, doing very well, thank you, my friend. Was that Greek that you started with?
Yeah, well,
are you going to do the outro in Greek as well?
No, I'm not. Yeah, Kalispera's good evening in Greek.
Poor planning, Tom. Come on, could do better. How are you?
Yeah, decent. Yeah, it's amazing what a win does, even if it is in the Carabao Cup, and scoring 6 goals, which of course we'll talk about in a bit, was also put me in a very, very jovial mood today. So looking forward to discussing that, even if we have to slog through Everton first. Chloe, welcome back. Welcome to your first show of the season. How are you?
Yeah, living the dream. How are you?
Yeah, living the dream, enjoying life. The sun is shining. It's good times. Summer is almost over for me as a teacher, so I'm just sort of like just enjoying the time I've got left. Evening, Michael, in the comments. Glad to have you with us. Keep dropping your comments throughout the session, guys. Get any questions in for us. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Talking of first times this season, we also welcome back Geordie. Geordie, my friend, how are you doing? Oh no, Geordie, you're muted, my friend. You are muted.
We are fine. We are fine. Enjoying Brighton.
Correct answer. And we welcome Dagan. Blimey, this is a bumper-packed show this evening. Good skills. Dagan, mate, how are you?
Delightful, Tom. Delightful. 6-0 will improve the mood. Even in Carabao Cup, as you said.
Yeah, we are going to, of course, talk about our thrilling victory over Oxford United in the Cup. We will, first of all, dive back into the past and talk about Everton at the weekend, because we didn't do a post-Everton show. Chloe, I'm going to come to you first because you are our resident tourist. You're the one who goes up and down the country following the team. First game of the season for Everton at their new place was always going to be a tough fixture for us. What sort of vibes did you get of the new ground? Because obviously, you know, their old ground, Goodison, was obviously supposed to be one of the best stadiums in the country for atmosphere and being pretty old school. What's the new one like?
It's all right. It does remind me a lot of Spurs Stadium. They don't have padded seats and the food's really expensive. Yeah, and the atmosphere wasn't very good considering, you know, they beat us 2-0 on their big day out, but they barely sung until they were 2-0 up and then they woke up a bit. But other than that, it was pretty pathetic. And the program was a tenner. I think it was like a special commemorative one, but still a tenner.
I mean, you lost me at no padded seats, to be honest. That was me out already. And it's interesting you say about like the lack of atmosphere, because I don't know if you guys saw the report. Apparently, it was judged as one of the loudest football games of all time. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere. Chloe, was it that loud or were they just bluffing?
I mean, it was loud when they scored. I don't know if they're sort of going by that, how loud it was at sort of a singular moment rather than throughout. But for most of the game, even when, because I rewatched the game on the telly because I hate myself, and you could hear Brighton fans, you could hear us singing, and it's like they didn't create much of an atmosphere. At the very start, it was quite loud, and then it quietened down, and then when they scored their first, they woke up for a second, but then they, you know, and we were singing 1-0 and you still don't sing, because they just did not sing.
How strange. I mean, from my memories of the first game of the because it was roaring all game. But hey ho. But no, thanks you for that, for the insight, Chloe. It's interesting when new stadiums crop up, especially, you know, people talk about atmosphere being such an important part of the game these days, and a lot of fans criticize these new fashion stadiums because they just don't have the same feel as the old school grounds. I am sorry, panelists of this evening and viewers at home. We are going to have to talk about Everton because we didn't do a podcast afterwards. So we'll keep it short, just because we don't want to have to relive that pain again. Joe, watching the game, what was your overall impression?
A little bit of same old story from Fulham, to be honest. Just not finishing the chances and the cruel nature of the Premier League getting punished for doing so. I think the promising thing is that we are creating chances. I think any worries for clubs that if you're not creating chances and you're losing games, then you really should worry. I've got faith that we're going to put things right, and that if we keep doing the good things right and sort of stamp out the stupid, immature stuff we seem to be getting into a habit of doing, then that will be all right. But there's definitely a lot more things for us to be looking at negatively, as opposed to what we had at the end of last season. So feels at the moment a little bit of a backward step. So I'm hoping that things can be worked out and that we can be positive again and look forward to games and not rely on beating Oxford 6-0 to pick up our mood. Obviously things are going to get tough. We've got Manchester City next, and the next fixtures after that seem pretty not in our favour. So we're going to have to challenge the establishment, as Hertzler said, to pick our moods up again. So yeah, not a great game, but we've got to move on.
You certainly do, but I'm not going to let you move on yet. Geordie, as Joe says, a lot of opportunities created. I mean, Matoma almost scored, potential goal of the season, but still no goals from open play in the first two games. A lot of fans are saying some pretty negative things. How are you feeling about the forward situation at the club at the moment?
Yeah, I think losing some clinical finishers like Joao Pedro, these kind of finishers that when it's the moment they finalize. Also with, I don't know, with some faults or dead shots, like we have previously taken penalties like Joao Pedro and before Alexis McAllister, for me, were top players finishing on critical situations. Losing this kind of players and possibly the ones that we have purchased were the Greek ones or the new players that have not played. For me, it's something that if Mitoma is not in his best day, I think that from the past players that are not the new ones, we don't have clinical finishers in any position. No midfielders, no left wingers or right wingers. I like lots of players, but I think Brighton in Gruda or in our wingers, actually, we don't have this kind of clinical finishers. So my expectations is like they should improve on this aspect. I don't know. It's not an example, but if you remember the Salah when he was playing in Rome or the first Vinicius, they were not clinical players, and finally they finished to be clinical players. So I think it's something we need to tackle because based on Joe's comments, if not, Premier League is so hard.
Yeah, it's a tough old league, and you talk about the clinical players. I do agree. I think Minter needs to work on his final ball, shall we say? And I'm glad you talked about penalties, Geordie, because Chloe, last week, Matt O'Reilly, your boy, he scored a really well taken penalty against Fulham. Against Everton, we won a penalty, but it wasn't Matt O'Reilly to take it. It was Danny Welbeck. Were you surprised when Welbeck took it instead of Matt O'Reilly, considering O'Reilly had scored the week before?
I think Chloe's thing's broken.
Oh no! Bear with us, viewers, whilst Chloe just unmutes.
Oh,
Oh, there we go.
I muted myself and then I couldn't unmute it. Yeah, penalties. Was I surprised to see Welbeck taking it? I was a little surprised, but then I thought, well, he wasn't on the pitch when O'Reilly took his in the previous game, so I thought maybe he, it has been decided that he's the best player to take a penalty if he's on the pitch. but it was feeling like one of those days, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't overly confident that he was gonna score it. I think he's missed one for us before a while back, and he just looked a bit nervous, but it's easy to sort of say with hindsight, oh yeah, I felt like he was going to miss it at the time, but I was not that confident. It was sort of in front of the Everton fans as well. It's just not the best.
Yeah, I wonder if missing the chance early from about 6 yards and skying it over maybe dented his confidence. But you'd think with Welbeck being the seasoned pro that he is, he'd be able to, I don't know, maybe gather himself. But yeah, disappointing that we couldn't convert from the penalty spot. It just wasn't our day in front of goal. But Dagan, Everton with their first chance of the half and only chance of the first half, really, took us to town. I think we can both agree, and we did so in the group chat as it was happening, that our fullbacks didn't cover themselves in glory. First of all, Mats Vifa not getting anywhere near tight enough, and then De Kuyper losing his man at the back post.
We did agree, and I think we were accurate in our assessment and fair. Yeah, and that story of so many games, we look resolute. We look the more dangerous team in attack. You know, the stat line from the first half, we missed 2 big chances of the 2 that we had. They missed no big chances of the 1 they had. And that's the sport. And you feel it, right? When you miss those early big chances, you just feel like that's going to come back to haunt us. And it did. And, you know, credit to them. The ball in was near, perfect from Grealish. And Jai was there to finish. But De Kuyper, he just continues to lose his mark on the back post. I don't know if it's ball watching or what, but he has a hard time back there. I think there was a goal against Wolfsburg that was scored where he was the marker at the back post. He was in the area with the Muniz goal against Fulham as well. And you can't blame that on any one player, obviously, but he was in the vicinity, and that was his side of the pitch. And then this one, more obviously and singularly him. And Weaver could have done better. In the chat, is that Michael? Veltman should be our right back. He certainly impressed yesterday, put some good balls in. I mean, I think there's a lot that Weaver brings that's impressive and helpful. His aerial ability and ability to sort of place the ball with his head when he is further forward often opens up the attack because he can win the ball in those spaces in the air with his size. Veltman, I know, is a big guy, but he's quite as tall as Weaver is. But he is more experienced. And I think, to your point, Tom, if I could anticipate what you might say in reply, you'd like to see Weaver as part of the midfield, perhaps.
I certainly would. And I'm actually going to open it up into an open forum for the next couple of talking points, actually. The first one is, what I talked about in the group chat last night and the other day. Square pegs, round holes. I talked about it after Fulham, with Ruta playing at striker, Matt O'Reilly, the 8, playing at 10, for a midfielder playing at right back, De Kuyper, a wing back, playing at left back. And with De Kuyper, you could argue, wing back, left back, what's the difference? But there are we're playing a lot of players out of position. And I know, Dagan, you've mentioned before about versatility and how important it is to hers, and I totally understand that. So I just want to open forum. Anyone can jump in. Why are we playing so many players out of position?
People not being ready, like Hertzler says, I guess. Obviously Mats Weaver putting in some excellent performances at right back at the end of last season that continued into pre-season. So obviously we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Maybe it is the fact that Mats Weaver has made himself the starting right back in Fabian Hertzler's head. It is incredibly frustrating because when things aren't working, you can look at that fact and say that is the reason. And I think Fabian Hertzler needs to go back to the drawing board on a couple of decisions that he's making in terms of players that are playing out of position. Kadioglu's waiting in the wings to come and play at fullback. Mats Vifa, I'm sure, would love to have a go at being a central midfielder for us. And it's, you know, we were looking at him last season, bringing him in as a central midfielder, thinking that's such an incredible signing to have him alongside Carlos Baleba. I can't remember maybe at all seeing that pairing, maybe once or twice, but in my opinion, I think it could be a really, really fruitful pairing, given that solid foundation for our attacking 3 or 4 ahead of them to go on and be as creative as they want to be and have that freedom. I think there's fear at the moment that Carlos is the one to be breaking up the play and to be winning that ball back. And if he's not doing that, there's a massive gap between our attack and defense. And that's where those spaces are opening up for the likes of Jack Grealish to attack that just acres of space that Mats Vifa left. And I think that's where you bring in the likes of Kadioglu, who can cover that space quickly, or you can bring in Joel Veltman, who is an incredibly intelligent defender and wouldn't leave himself in that position. So, I think, as I say, Fabian Herzler just needs to go back to, and I hate to say it like this because, you know, I'm a fan. I'm not a UEFA A coach, but just go back to the basics a little bit. And as you say, Tom, very basically play players in their natural position. We've got players that are waiting, ready to do that. So why aren't we doing it is the question.
To your point, Michael, in the comment about playing players out of position allows for easier formation changes. I totally get that. But playing Weaver at right back is why he didn't get tight enough to.
I think it's great to have.
Grealish.
It's great to have versatile players, as Dagan says, but not everybody. You know, it's not total Netherlands football from the 90s. We can't have these players, you know, thinking about what role they're going to have to transition into. They need a basic understanding of what their role is.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing.
Yeah.
Go on, Dagan. You want to dive in here? Go dive. It's an open forum. Go.
When I look at a lot of the bigger clubs, there's a clear pecking order between the highest paid veteran player who is the nailed on starter in the position, and then a typically younger understudy who is hungry but capable, but they're still clearly the second in line. And that's accepted at the biggest clubs. But when you get to sort of, I would say, the second tier of Premier League clubs, and I think we're in that other group, guys want the chance to play. And the best pathway to be able to play for those guys who are on the margins sometimes is not in their preferred position. If preferred position for Baleba and Vifer is the same, for example, and I think some would say Baleba has become more of an 8 than a 6. And I don't think anybody would say Vifer is more an 8 than a 6. They would say he's more of a 6, I think. But if we can't play them both as dual 6s, you know, it may be hard to find time for them. So where else can Vifer play? Because he has some ego. We paid him a lot of money to come in. There's an expectation that he's going to be on the pitch. O'Reilly wants to be an 8, not a 10, but there's space at the 10, so he's playing at the 10. He can play both, or at least Herzler assumes that he can play both. He was advertised as a guy who can play both. Kadioglu we see as primarily a right-footed left back. He started at winger the other night, and I thought it looked great and produced a lot. And because he's a natural left back, he was great getting back and helping to defend, which was an asset. Right? So I think the struggle we're running into is we have more players who expect to play, more players who are sort of nailed in the team, like Baleba and Matoma, who aren't going anywhere. And so we have to work around them, and Van Hecke, like we have to work around those guys to some degree. And until our pay structure is such that guys understand, oh, here's the pecking order, we're going to have a lot of dissatisfied players if they aren't getting on the pitch somewhere to get a chance to show what they can do. I think it's a tough position for a manager to be in this level between the very top and trying to get out of the sort of maybe bottom of the second tier to stay at the top of the second tier, which is like the edge of Europe. Given, again, that we have a payroll structure that doesn't look quite as big as a Villa or a Newcastle, right? Newcastle's payroll structure is such that the highest paid players, right, the Guimareshes and the Isaks, are way over 100K. We don't have any of that. And I do think that hierarchy matters. So I know that's not related, but it is. Ego and expectations are a factor in the decisions.
Fair. That's a good, interesting way to look at it. Chloe, Geordie, anything to add on playing players out of position? Anything you just want to get off your chest?
I think in terms of playing players up front, we haven't had that much of a choice if, as Ursula says, the likes of Simas and Babis, I'm calling him that. He said we could call him that. Aren't ready. If Watson's not ready, then it's difficult because we don't really have strikers or forwards. I don't think Jorginho's a striker. I think he's a 10. So it's basically Welbeck. So I think sometimes it's out of necessity, but it is when there's when you've got the likes of Veltman and Kadioglu on the bench and you've got a midfielder playing at right back, it is sort of against Jack Grealish as well. And he is a player that has hurt us in the past. It just makes me raise an eyebrow slightly, but I get that there's reasons behind it.
A very well balanced statement there, Chloe. Thank you. I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but the thought of Rifa up against City's wingers like Doku scares the hell out of me. We'll talk about that later. It's interesting as well, Chloe, that you mentioned about the upfront ones. I think Herzler got quite bored by being asked about the lack of attacking options. But I just want to, as for our last point against, kind of about Everton anyway, before we can talk about last night's, I read this interesting piece here saying that one fan thought we had a failure of recruitment. And it'll be interesting to see, again, open forum in just a second. A failure of recruitment to leave the squad with Welbeck as the only number 9. We sold João Pedro, Evan Ferguson went out on loan. Whilst we wait for the Greek teenagers to be deemed ready, which Herzler seems to be sort of trying to keep a lid on, describing it as madness, especially when you consider Brighton have spent the best part of £250 million over the past 3 transfer windows. So we've talked a little bit about the lightness up top. So again, open forum, anyone that can jump in, again, comments as well. Is it a failure of recruitment to leave 35-year-old Danny Welbeck as the only recognised number 9 who is deemed ready?
I wouldn't call it a failure because we still spent money on players who we maybe expected to be ready earlier than what they were. And that if we did have a fit and firing Kostoulas and Simas on the bench for the last 2 games to bring on, it would have been an exciting thing for us to be talking about now. But it's just the fact that their progress has been staggered a little bit that we're all thinking that it's terrible planning. Some things in football can't be accounted for. We didn't expect them to end last season with injuries each and not to have the time to bed into the squad in pre-season. But I do think that the club should be as proactive as they can be in looking at the here and now and making sure that we have at least another option, whether that had been, and I know obviously different factors are taken into account, but having Seamer on the bench, even though he is looking for a move away. Exactly. They've played pre-season minutes. They've been involved in that way. That's to get them ready. Is that to get them ready for a move away? Or is that to get them ready to contribute to the club whilst they're here? That's what I don't understand. And Seamer scored in pre-season. So this is a player that is more than able to fill in as and when we're waiting for these young strikers to come through. And I'm not, I don't want to pile the pressure on these young strikers at all. And I don't want them to be lauded as the saviors, because I feel like that's too much to put on their shoulders too soon.
Where Joe, just sorry to cut in. Where have we heard that before? 2 young Irish strikers spring to mind.
Well, exactly. So it's a dangerous position to be in for them too. Obviously, Seamus got off to the perfect start yesterday, which we'll come on to a little bit more in a minute. But yeah, why wasn't Seamer on the bench against Fulham and Everton? I don't understand that. If they're playing in pre-season, we're just getting players ready to move on to other clubs, and there doesn't seem to be much thought of the here and now. And I know we spent money last summer, and we've spent a little bit more now, but we're looking at these strikers as they could be the ones to replace Danny Welbeck in the future. There's not much for right now, especially selling João Pedro. Yeah, I think you needed to bring in maybe a marquee signing in the attack.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. As you've sort of alluded to, Joe, and as I did as well, we saw what happened when we put all that pressure on Evan Ferguson and Aaron Connolly, respectively. Obviously, there were mitigating factors in both of those cases with injuries and personal issues. It's just very wary of putting that much pressure on a young striker, because it's a position where you go a couple of games without goals, and questions start getting asked. So even bringing in someone like, maybe not Jamie Vardy, but because he was the first person to spring to mind, like a free transfer, or someone from Belgium or somewhere like that. Go on, Geordie, you've got your hand up as if you've got something to say. Go.
No, that I fully agree on you when you were telling to us if it was a fail of recruitment. For me, it's not a fail, but because I understand recruitment in two sides. No, the ways that Brighton is getting players, it's two ways. No, one way it's find gems in the market, young players, and then sell to them. I think Brighton in this side, it still to be very good. But then the other way of getting players is what you were explaining to us. Old players that have impact immediately, but we paid €0. It was possibly Welbeck at this moment. Then we get Adam Lallana. Now we get, yes, Milner, but he's not playing at all, so he could help in the dressing room. But for me, one of the things that I am missing in Brighton is like this: have players with €0 possibly to hire them, just pay 1 or 2 years, but immediate impact. So yeah, it could be the case of Jamie Vardy. It could have been the case of Callum Wilson. I don't know. This kind of players that, okay, it's not prepared the Greek one. Someone can support. Only it's 1 year, and he also, I don't know. For me, it's also valuable because possibly the Greek ones could learn from Vardy 1 year or 2 years, despite possibly they at middle of the season they will get and play more than him. But I think this part we are not making as good as now, because if you start thinking on the lineup of Brighton, if you exclude Dunk and Mitoma, the other players get in the team previous year, or and that's all, most part of the whole team. It's like all the players have been of the lineup were from previous year or from this year. When we have, I don't know, I know Joe that he loves him, but when we have Pascal Gross, it's an institution that you have 4 or 5 years. Then it came Alexis McAllister, 2-3 years. So from me, the feeling that I have is like on defensive positions, okay, because we have Beltman, Van Hecke, Barn also now. But from the midfield onwards in the attacking, it could not be like, excluding Mitoma, that your second most experienced player is Baleba, that came from previous year. I don't know if you have this problem because Brighton is selling a lot. Sorry, but you need one experienced player, like in the moment was other players that have other top teams, like Aston Villa or whatever, that in a specific moment you can get him. And it's not a cost that will compromise to you in the future. It's like a normal salary, but €0 transfer cost. For me, it's the part that I am missing.
We have shown, obviously, as you say, we've done that in the past. I think this would have been a perfect summer to do it, especially with João Pedro going, because as you say, even if these players are only here for a year or two, they can still teach the young players like Costulas and Simas, a thing or two. So it might have been a shrewd bit of business to see if we could bring someone else in, and also it just gives poor Danny Welbeck a bit of a break. He looked so rusty against Everton. I am mindful of time, of course, talking about a game that happened at the weekend. So let's move on to slightly happier things then, guys. Let's talk about last night, because last night was a bit less doom and gloom and a bit more entertainment. And it was actually a really end-to-end game at times. And I think before I say anything about it, I've got to give credit to Oxford United, because, within the first 30 seconds, they could have scored. And they really made Jason Steele work for his for his clean sheet last night. So let's move on to the goal fest that was last night. Chloe, within the first 30 seconds, Igor gives the ball away, and Oxford United score. A nice welcome back for Igor there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had a decent performance overall yesterday, but that was quite a nerve-wracking moment so early on in the game. I do think we probably would have gone back into it, even if we had conceded, but you never want to go 1-0 down that early on. It's never a good start, the worst possible start, obviously. Yeah.
Agreed. Dagan, I want to come to you next against the man who was stood next to Igor, and that's Oliver Pascagli. Scored his goal, his first goal for the club on his first debut, but I was really impressed with how vocal he was. Seemed like a really good leader on the pitch. I know a few fans are calling for him to start at the weekend, myself included. What did you make of his game against Oxford United?
Hard to say he put a foot wrong. I mean, he really was solid throughout. One thing I noticed, he uses his body really well and smartly. Whenever he was sitting behind a bigger striker as the last man back, he would get up under him, and as the ball came overhead, he would just get his body into him and then would just take off and use his speed. But he would get the striker off balance so that he had that clear first step to get away from him. Just clever defending, a guy who's clearly undersized. Also noticed a couple times when the ball was in the air ahead of him, he pursued the ball and leapt, and he could jump. Like, he can really get off the ground. I was wondering, like, how does he win such a high percentage of headers being a 5'11" center back? He can elevate. That's how. So I noticed he seems to be a really, really smart player. He was communicating. He was gesturing, with the ball at his feet, kind of directing traffic. Just a lot to like there. It will be interesting to see how he's used. He pushed forward as a center back some, and then Igor tucked in as the wide player when Igor was playing at left back. That was really interesting. So it was like he was stepping up into more of a CDM role, which is kind of what we thought Weaver would do, but in the inverse, right? A back three where Weaver drops from the 6 into the back line. It was almost the inverse of that. We're a back 4, but one of the guys at the back was stepping in. So I wonder if that's a preview of maybe how we'll see him used in the future. But again, I'm not 100% sure, what that'll look like, because I think he made more sense to me on paper as a left-sided center back in a back 3. And that is kind of what I'm hoping, right? Because I think Coppola and Dunk both are better suited to being that central defender in a back 3 where their pace is not or lack of pace. Although Coppola looks like he can actually move. And I saw people didn't seem as impressed with him. I loved his physicality. The ball that he headed down for the goal I thought was fantastic. It looked like he knew he couldn't get his head to it. I know this wasn't a question about Coppola, but I thought the duo was really promising, and I thought they were a nice foil for each other in terms of the strengths that they brought. But yeah, I really like Pascagli. I think he will be a very useful player, hopefully for a long time.
Yeah, he certainly will be. I think I like the look of him. I like him a lot. As I say, I'll come to it in a bit later, but he definitely goes into the team I want to see against Manchester City. Joe, another player that I'm just going to pick on, really, I say pick on because it's all for good things. James Milner, he was just brilliant yesterday. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's Oxford United, but we saw what happened to Manchester United yesterday. You've still got to go out there. You've still got to win these games. And I thought James Milner was blimmin' excellent.
Yeah, and the opening line on my Finalysis match report was just how professional we were. And I think that comes from the heart of the midfield in James Milner, and bringing that level of, it may well be a lesser opposition on paper and they're in the Championship, but we need to go out there and we need to do a job. And we've seen in the Cup for many, many, many years that it's not as straightforward as people make it out to be. But when you're professional like that, you can make it straightforward. You can make it look straightforward. So I think there's a huge element of credit that has to go to James Milner, and that's why he's in our squad. That's why he came on against Fulham to a little bit of ill effect. Obviously, I know that he lost his man for the corner, but these are the kind of experienced players that you want to bring on if you are trying to see out a 1-0 win. Sometimes it won't work, and that's what we have to deal with. But when it does work, we have to complement it. So, big props to him for being 68 years old and still playing Carabao Cup football.
Yeah. 68, Joe. He's not that old. So I'm just going to come to a comment from Tim. Back three, that means that you get width from the wing backs. Not sure how that would work with Matoma and Minte on the wings. I like to be able to move to a back three as a tactical change. I think Minte would make a fantastic wing back, Tim. That is my personal view. And I think Matoma shows that actually when he cuts inside from a wide position, that's when he's the most dangerous. When he's running rings around. That's just my view. I think it's one of those things that until we see it, it'll be interesting. We did see it last year against Fulham, I believe. We started with a back three, and then Bart Verbruggen decided to pass the ball to Alex Iwobi.
Mitoma's that good that you can have him on the outside and take defenders on and get to the byline and create width, and he is that good that you can have him come inside. So I think we're quite lucky in that sense. As you say, Minte is just a pressing demon and would be excellent there.
Yeah, and Matoma played wing back for Union Saint-Gilloise way back when. So an interesting factoid there. Geordie, at the top, when we talk about Everton, we talked about how we couldn't score. Yesterday we scored 6 with Pascagli, Gruda, Gomez, Simas at the double, and Watson all on the score sheet. Some impressive goals there. Were any in particular that you thought were just very, very good?
The most important yesterday, one of the things that I valued the most with Simas was his ability to kick without thinking. I think it's very important because, for example, case of Gruda, it was an excellent goal, whatever, but I think it's not, you cannot compare with the Premier League his performance, and I will explain a little bit. Premier League has this excellent level that you don't have time to decide or not, and I think that he could dribble and get some situations yesterday because the opposition of Oxford, it's not the best way as he are defending. But one of the things that I valued most in case of Simas in both goals was like his quick reaction time. I think it's something that it's very useful when you are in Premier League. It's something like, for example, in case of Minte time deciding or whatever, he didn't get the goal. And if you remember, Alexis McAllister or I don't know, or Joao Pedro, one of the most valuable things they have was like her finish was so clinical when they need to try to put the foot. So I valued him not for the goals, but for me was doing orientation in controls or these kind of things was the quick time reaction. I valued a lot yesterday.
I think that's a really worthwhile point there. You see, as you say, with Minte, thinks and thinks and thinks, and then things tend to go wrong, whereas Simas, it almost seemed so natural. Now, Chloe, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but Ballon d'Or winner, Golden Boot winner, firing us to Premier League title, Simas, fantastic debut. For you, does he start the weekend against Manchester City?
I'm not sure. It might be a bit soon because obviously he was only playing against a championship side. And I think Hertzler has made it quite clear that he won't be starting on Sunday, but I would hope that he will play a part at least, even if it's coming off the bench. And also we are quite light in that area, especially if Jorginho's not back. I think it's a bit unclear whether he will be back or not. So I would like to see him start, but it might be too soon. And I really want him to play a part. So if that's off the bench, then I think that's okay. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to forgive me. I'm very excited about the prospect, and I think what he will have for the first few appearances for us in the Premier League is his unknownability. People aren't going to know his game. It's the same thing happened with Evan Ferguson. They didn't know his game, so he scored a hatful. It was only when they found out about his game that the goals started to dry up. So he's an unknown quantity, is CMAS, and that could work in our favour against a Manchester City side. Some other great performances last night, Joe. Another one I want to focus on, Jason Steele. He was just, again, phenomenal last night. And again, some people might say, oh, he's found his level. It's Oxford United. Blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, even though we were up against championship opposition, they still made us work really hard defensively. And I think, we have to be honest here, a better team would have probably scored, 2 or 3 goals. But Jason Steele, absolutely imperious between the sticks.
They wouldn't have scored 2 or 3 goals because Jason Steele was in the goal, and he was absolutely excellent. I think we caused ourselves the most defensive issues, to be honest. A few stray passes leading to...
We like doing that.
We do. Leading to Steely having to, think really quickly on his feet, and some of the reaction saves that he made. There was one from a free kick where it was some unbelievable strike, and he got down so quickly, and that the pace of the ball of what a professional footballer doesn't change that much in terms of Championship or Premier League, and his reaction times were fantastic, and again a model professional that our younger players can look at and see as somebody who's come through a lot of turmoil in his career, and then led us to European football, and was our starting goalkeeper in our first ever game in Europe. So he's, as Fabian Hertzler called him after the game, an excellent number 2. I think Steely knows his place and is someone that is happy with his place. Obviously, he came in as a number 3 or a number 4 when we actually signed him. So, yeah, credit to him. And, yeah, he was probably the reason that we went on to win 6-0, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you can't underplay how brilliant he was. And some fans were even calling for him to start on at the weekend against Manchester City. It's funny how the turntables have turned, because it wasn't that long ago that people were saying Steele was awful and terrible and scares the hell out of everyone because he holds onto the ball and 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 he kicks it.
Do you mean fans being reactionary, Tom? Never.
No, it's not like us at all, is it? Dagan, would be remiss of me not to also mention some of the other debutants last night. Babis Kostulas and Tommy Watson both came on, both looked very impressive. Watson added the 6th goal, really nice, well-taken goal. What did you make of those 2 young lads? Do you think they've got a place on the bench at the weekend?
It sounds like Kostulas won't. I would be surprised to see either of the 2 on the bench, just given what we've seen so far. But I wouldn't be upset to see either. I would say of Steele, as we see more comments coming about him, he was great, but they should have done better with a lot of those chances. Like, if we had produced those shots with the amount of open goal that was there, we'd have been very disappointed. So I have to say, the joke of Steele finding his level, I do think some of that is true. Like, I think he would be an excellent championship keeper. I think we've seen enough to know that he's a really good number 2 in the Premier League. I really think that's what he is. If he's your everyday starter, I think you definitely have a bottom half keeper. Some might say that of Bart right now, but Bart's
excuse me,
upside.
Dagan. Excuse me. I think you'll find that Jason Steele was a top 6 Premier League team goalkeeper. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh.
Sure.
We're just gonna forget about that season.
Yeah, I guess. Did he start the season as the starter? Did he play the whole season as the starter? I don't remember that.
Bob Sanchez threw his toys
Sanchez
out the
started
pram.
it, and then when he who must not be named came in, we swapped over. Then Sanchez threw a hissy fit and left for Chelsea.
So we were 4th with Sanchez. I think we actually, if you looked at the rest of the season, we were 8th best. So I don't know. I'm just saying. But that is top half to your point. So you're right on. I don't know. Steele played a fantastic game. You can't take that away from him. I don't think that in any way makes me feel like we should be calling for him to be number 1. But I know others may disagree. Bart has a lot of critics out there. Anyway, I dodged the Costoulis and Watson question a little bit. I think they look great. They look promising. Costoulis certainly has an it factor to him. There's just a little air of, I have something special you haven't seen yet that really is exciting and intriguing. You can see why so many fans in Greece are just, heaping praise upon him. Simas really reminds me so much of Ferguson. He just reminds me of Ferguson. He seems like a very similar physical specimen with a little bit more quickness. He just seems to have a little bit of extra gear to his top end speed that Ferguson doesn't have. So that's exciting. I'll be curious to see if his both footedness in finishing matches Ferguson, which I think was a real strength of Ferguson when he started out with us. Is there a Gruda question coming? Are we talking about Gruda? Okay.
Yeah, he's next on the agenda.
Okay, I won't jump on that, but I just saw the note from Michael in the chat on that front. So
yeah.
I'll pass. Watson looked as clinical finishing as he did when he put Sunderland through to the Premier League. I like Watson, and I like that he could potentially play more centrally and not just as a winger, because he's a big dude.
Oh, Dagan, we don't need any more central players, because that's where the next thing comes on to. Gruda, because as good as he was last night, scoring a goal, some magic feat. I think, was it for the Boscagli goal when he sort of darts? No, that wasn't that goal. But anyway, there was a moment, I know, after he tried to round the keeper and then shoot with his right foot instead of his left. Sorry, other way around. But he showed he was brilliant last night. And as Geordie says, it was against championship opposition. But even so, rumours have spread this evening that apparently Gruda is unhappy with not getting as much game time as he'd like. And reports are that many teams in the Bundesliga are licking their lips, shall we say, at the prospect of getting him in on loan. So again, open forum for a discussion on this one. We have an abundance of players who can play 10. Ruta, Gruda, Facundo Buonanotte, who seems to have disappeared or run over Herzler's cat because he can't get a look in edgeways. You've got O'Reilly who can play at 10. You have got Gomez who could arguably play at 10. We have Howell, who we'll talk about in a bit. We have a lot of people who can play in at the 10. We only play 110. Gruda leaving. My opinion, bad. Your turn.
Go on, Geordie. I know you had your hand up. Go on, mate.
No. In my case, I just want to remind you, we have the same perspective, or in my case, because I knew him, when we have Caicedo at United, we loan on him at Belgium, and the rest is history. For me, top 3 midfielders of the world as defensive midfield without any doubt. For me, the decision should be clear, and the decision is I think it's not good or bad. The decision is we get Gruda and we will give him minutes. I take it. If not, out. For having in the bench and give him 10 minutes, I think Gruda is so young and doesn't need this. So I prefer to have shorter squads, but use more of them. In my case, Gruda is so good, but for me, Facundo Buonanotte could be useful in Brighton, and we want to sell him. I'm sorry, but I understand. I don't understand a lot Harsler way of thinking. Possibly, I understand more the criteria of before with Roberto, but with the young players, it seems like or he like or love it, or he doesn't use it. And these opportunities, I think Roberto was bad, in my opinion.
I think Gruda's got, people are saying in the comments they'd rather see Gruda over O'Reilly. Definitely in the 10 for sure, yeah. I don't think Gruda's a right-handed player. I think he gets marked out of the game too often, and maybe is a little bit like what we saw from Facundo when he was played out on the right-hand side. It just went missing a little bit. When you bring him centrally, he can have that freedom, and he's got that flair about him that just gets people off their seats every time he picks the ball up. The end of last season, he was excellent, and was great in the Euros for Germany. Again, playing on the right hand side, so not maybe as effective as he can be. But if we get him in that, I would say his more natural position, he could be groundbreaking for us. We saw his incredible feat yesterday. I know obviously he was a little bit indecisive with his first opportunity, but I think he responded really well to that sort of adversity that he had to overcome. And if we sell him, genuinely big questions need not sell him, sorry. If we loan him, big questions need to be asked. These are incredibly talented players that we're just letting walk away from the club. If he goes out on loan to Germany, he could really enjoy his time then, and we could be sitting here in 12 months' time saying goodbye Gruda. Happened with Undav, happened with Evan Ferguson, and it's just not a very nice position to be looking at all of this talent that is just falling by our wayside a little bit. And why is that not happening? Why isn't there these opportunities for these players to show what they've already got?
It's an interesting one. 2 seconds, Dagan. I think our squad is so bloated in midfield. We have no depth at winger, not really. The only wingers we have are Minte and Matoma. That's it. Watson isn't a winger. Gruda isn't a winger. Facundo Buonanotte is not a winger. We have all these 10s and 8s and 6s. But we've got we have 2 wingers. So my question again is, why aren't we playing like a 3-4-3 with 2 inside 10s? Our squad is so built for a back 3, and similar to what Herzl played at St. Pauli, but we seem to be persevering with a 3-2 whatever. I don't want to get into all that, the numbers and stuff, but it just seems like our squad is built for a system that we aren't playing, which is a bit of a head scratcher for me. But anyway, to your point, Dagan.
I mean, I was just responding to Joe. We can't play everybody, right? Like that's the hard part. I feel like we've acquired talent to be a team that's competing in Europe, and we're not yet. And so we have enough players to compete in Europe, and now we're like, oh, what do we do with all of these guys? We played a squad almost completely devoid of regular starters yesterday. United didn't do that, and they lost anyway. The end of that game, when they equalized, they had a full-fledged Premier League level starting lineup out there against a League Two side, right? They're sending players away who were disgruntled and not playing. So, and struggling to get the fees they want for those guys because they haven't played and they're distressed assets. So the difficulty of we bring in all these players that are at $30 million, right? And they expect to play. And if we don't play them, or aren't going to play them. The only thing we really can do is loan them out to keep their value, right? Because if they don't play at all, they lose value, they get frustrated, they're a distressed asset. And that's kind of where O'Reilly was this summer, right? We were like, we're going to sell him best case for what we bought him for, right? And I think that's the real struggle, is like we get all these guys in, and it was like we've got to make a determination about who's where in the pecking order. It's why, for me, people cry out for these veteran leaders, but if Danny Welbeck is anchoring your striker spot, that's one less available starting spot that we have, and has it. If Milner is going to be guaranteed some minutes in matches and we're bringing him on, that's another player who's not getting those 20 minutes that might go to Wiefer instead as a sub. But instead we're giving him minutes at right back. Like, it's a really delicate balance. I think it's easy to just say it's the manager. There has to be some level of institutional pressure to make decisions that keep these guys happy, that, give everyone time, that allow our investments, because these are investments of the club, like it or not. I know they're people, but we are investing in these people and hoping their value increases. It's tricky. So you guys always know I'm not going to be hypercritical of the manager. I'm not going to be hypercritical of the club, just because our record over time indicates we keep getting better. We continue to get high fees for the players that come in and out. It is frustrating. I love João Pedro. João Pedro is an insane talent, and I hate that he's gone, and I hate that we have not yet shown that we've replaced him adequately. But I have to believe that the club believes that Simas and or Castulas soon will be that guy. Baleba did not look all the way the ready-made replacement for Caicedo in the eyes of De Zerbi, right? We didn't crucify De Zerbi because he wasn't playing Baleba. At least most fans didn't, because he was immune to such criticism because of the end-of-season result the year prior. So people gave him the benefit of the doubt. However, I don't feel like Hürzeler, who has actually performed at the same level in terms of wins and losses and points awarded as De Zerbi, is being afforded the same amount of sort of goodwill.
I don't think it's. I'm not trying to out Hürzeler of him making the decisions to not be playing these guys. It's more the decision making of the planning of the squad, because Gruda, bar Kadioglu, who can come on as an attacking option, Gruda was the only attacking option on the bench against Fulham. And
True.
if we're saying Simas isn't ready and Babis isn't ready, who knows how long they're not going to be ready for? 3 months maybe. And then if we're then talking of letting Gruda go, who is the only attacking option on our bench at the moment, I just think is incredibly poor planning and would be an absolutely ludicrous move. I'm not saying by Hürzeler, I'm saying by the club.
Okay.
It's just ridiculous to even think of the fact that Gruda could be leaving the club this summer.
Right. But there's probably not a place for him and Facundo. Is that a fair statement?
There is, which is a strange one, because you could argue that Facundo's done more in the Premier League than Gruda has.
You could, right? But so which one do you keep?
Facundo.
Or do you think there's room for both? I agree.
I say Gruda. Tom says
I would say Gruda. He's electric. And was it Tim in the chat that said he can do things that not many of our players can do? Because I would agree. I would have liked to have seen him come on earlier against Everton. I thought we were begging for impact sub like him earlier. So I thought that was curious. However, if I look down my bench and there's a guy sulking because he feels like he should already be on, it's harder for me to put him on. He looked like he had a bad attitude when he came on. That bad attitude could have been showing itself 20 minutes prior, for all we know. Could have shown itself in the locker room when he wasn't a starter. Like as a coach, that stuff matters. And if a player responds that way and then the manager puts him in anyway, that shows the rest of the locker room that if I throw a fit, I get what I want. So again, that's all conjecture. I don't know what happened, but we're all talking about him being dissatisfied. So if it was evident to us, it probably wasn't just evident to us. So again, I lean towards trusting versus judging when I don't know the details.
Fair.
Jordy disagrees.
Go on, Jordy. Go.
No, but no. In general, in all the debate, I fully agree. But in the which kind of pieces has De Zerbi against Husler, I fully don't agree on that, because I think it's a huge difference. Like all the gems that were from Brighton Academy, like Ferguson, like Hinshelwood, the men who made them debut, and that the values increase, like for Caicedo, also was for other kind of players, for example, Ferguson with Enciso. For me, it was Roberto, and the way of having the courage to get players from the academy, also with skill that for us was impossible that he would play in the Premier League with his age. I'm sorry, but despite he's younger, I think he is less courage than him. And with Roberto, all the players in the squad, it was non-player in the squad that I value a coach when all the players in the squad increase their values. And with Roberto, all the players increase their values. Possibly it was, I think it's more practical, and Husler has some status, but for Husler is, okay, but Facundo not. Okay, but Enciso not. And the most part is South American players. I don't know if it's a topic of language, but I don't know if the feeling in UK possibly it's different, but the feeling in with all the friends in South America, here in Spain, it's like, okay, but with one kind of player seems like, for example, with Diego Gomez, he was flying in playing with Miami, and my feeling is like he doesn't have the confidence. So yes, it was more practical, but the feeling that we have in Spain from Brighton, it's like all the people that didn't know Brighton with Roberto, also with Potter, were enjoying with the way we play with Brighton. And this feeling, also with some ex-Brighton players that were playing in the team in Championship and League One, because I knew few of them. And the feeling is like with Husler, the feeling that you go as a people assisting in the stadium and you enjoy the way we play, it has decreased a lot. This is the feeling that we have.
You're not the only one.
I hear feeling. I hear feeling. Like there's such a feeling with De Zerbi, and I get it. He's a passionate man. He plays an inspiring and fun style. The results just weren't actually any better. They weren't any better. Like there's no debate around the results. Like so you can love him, but he also alienated two of our starters instantaneously. Trossard gone. Sanchez gone.
But he arrived in the middle of the season. He arrived in the middle of the season, and the second season, it's the only season that you could not compare because he was in Europe. 3 competitions. We arrived until the last part. The players, for me,
I'm comparing the results from the season we qualified for Europe. His results in the season we qualified for Europe weren't better than Hurtzler's last year. Not in the season where we finished 11th. Go look at the numbers. Go look at De Zerbi's record. It's not better. We were 4th when De Zerbi came in. We were 4th.
After what? Come on, Dagan. 8 games. Come on.
Okay, 6 games, but whatever.
Anyway, we're not here to discuss De Zerbi versus Hurtzler.
I'm gonna protect the current manager. Because the other guy, like he's shown his character, and I'm not gonna stand by and worship that guy. Not going to do it.
No.
So he can be a hero to whoever wants to have him as a hero.
Correct.
I still believe Graham Potter would have gotten us to Europe. I still believe Graham Potter would have gotten us to Europe that season with that talent because we had the best midfield in the league.
Yeah,
we did.
But for example,
you say
and
that.
Graham Potter coached those guys to be that midfield before De Zerbi got there.
Graham Potter wasn't playing Pascal Gross, so.
Yeah. No, but
anyway, we're not here to discuss.
But just not discussing, but just to finish was like the feeling. Despite the feeling of we play and the points, for me, one of the main things is like in terms of putting academy players, despite we are doing yesterday or something in lineups that you need to get it, like in Premier League. I think we are not at the same level that we were previously.
Can I just talk on behalf of me and Chloe here that we absolutely needed popcorn for that? That was incredible to watch.
But it shows you, that football is a passionate thing that I think you both have very good points. I think, Geordie, you speak from the heart because football is passion, it is soul. Dagan, you come at it from the statistical point of view, and you both make some very good points. But we're not here to talk about those points. But I do understand, Geordie. I do think that perhaps Roberto De Zerbi, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, Dagan, gave more opportunities to younger players than Hersler seems to have done. I could be wrong, but it does seem to me that Hersler has his preferred 11 and he doesn't really change it too often unless injury beckons. But again, I could be wrong. I'm not saying that Hinshelwood isn't getting minutes or Ayari as well. So maybe I've just disproved my own point. But anyway, talking of young players, I want to talk about two young players, Harry Howell and Charlie Tasker, who played their games last night. I thought Harry Howell was absolutely brilliant. At times, I thought he looked better when Seamas came on, got himself 2 assists. And I just want to highlight this lovely, wholesome tweet from Charlie last night saying, "Dream come true to make my debut for the club I've been at since the age of 6. This is only the beginning." I mean, that's what football is all about, isn't it? A young lad from Sussex playing his first game for his boyhood club. Gotta love it. And yeah, Harry Howell, he's a player that I really hope we give more opportunities to this season. So I'm very mindful of time. We're over an hour in. Let's quickly and briefly discuss Manchester City, the small task of Manchester City at the weekend. The starting 11 is going to be an interesting one. Many people will say that you can't take too much from a game against championship opposition, and it doesn't matter how well Seamas played or Boscagli played. Very different kettle of fish to playing Manchester City in the league, which is a fair point. And again, open forum, are there any changes to the team that started against Everton for anyone in the room? Go on, Joe.
Can I just give the chat what they want very quickly? Chloe, they want your thoughts on Roberto De Zerbi.
Oh God, we're never going to leave.
Sorry.
He did well for us. I'm not going to debate that, but I think he's shown his colours a little bit since he's left. Defended someone who, quite frankly, is absolutely awful person. And he just seems to be, he's got that passion, but I think it's, just some of the stories I've heard about him. I don't like him. I think he's a bit of a
bleep
idiot. There we go. I think he's a bit of an idiot.
I like how
that's me censoring myself. I don't like him as a person, but I did like him when he was here. But yeah, I think we just need to move on, get over it. He's gone.
There you go, chat.
Quite frank.
Tom, what was the question?
Thank you, Tim, for answering the question. Starting 11 against Manchester City, are we going to see any changes? Are any of the players who started or played against Oxford going to come in? I personally would make changes. I'd bring Veltman in for Vifa just because, as I said earlier, I fear that Mats Vifa will get a hard time against the City wingers. And again, I'd be tempted to go to a back 3.
I'd bring Kadioglu in for De Kuyper.
Really?
I think De Kuyper had an absolute stinker against Everton, to be honest.
I think he did, but again, I think it's a player that is being asked to do something he's perhaps not used to.
But
Belgium,
then,
he was
as I
playing
say,
on the left side of a midfield 4 because they played 3-4-3 almost exclusively in Belgium.
Yeah,
So
but then
again,
then we can bring in a player in Kadioglu who can play at fullback,
or we could just adapt to the squad we've got and play a back 3.
We could. The thing, obviously, I've said I don't want to pile pressure on the Greek lads, and Hertzler has said that obviously they're not quite there yet. But the thing for me is, and I know it's against championship opposition, Glenn Murray famously said the goalposts don't move. dependent on your league status. And the most important thing for strikers is consistency in their game time and confidence. We just had a striker who scored a brace come on and has, as Geordie mentioned, his quick decision making was fantastic. That doesn't change from Championship to Premier League. I know that defenders might react as quick as you can, but this is a striker that is in form. The fact that we're not even thinking of starting him for 45 minutes to see how he does, for me, is ludicrous over what we saw from Danny Welbeck against Everton. Seamas cannot come in and do any worse than what Danny Welbeck did up in Merseyside. So for me, Seamas absolutely has to start. And yeah, that's just my opinion. So.
Interesting. Anyone else for anyone else in regards to the starting 11?
I don't know if it's possible, but for me, for stopping Doku or the left wing of Manchester City, possibly I would put Hinshelwood there. I love Beltman, but for sure it could not be Weaver. It would be a huge disaster. And for me, one of the players that should play with Baleba, it's Gomez there. I think with Manchester City, a team that has a lot the ball, it's important to protect the midfield zone. And one of my feelings here is like with Ayari, he plays good, okay, but I think it has been the cheapest time in the last 5 years to play in this position. I think Ayari plays good, but for a team that will go to Europe, not enough, but by far. So, yeah, it's okay. He can be in the squad, but for me, having him in the starting 11 demonstrates our actual level. With Gross, Caicedo, and Alexis McAllister, he would have never played.
Yeah. Ayari, to be fair, I thought he played quite well against Fulham, Ayari, but I do take your point. I don't think he's better than Hinshelwood in the midfield, and I don't think he'd be any particularly better than Matt O'Reilly as an 8, which is debatable maybe against Manchester City, but I'd certainly rather see O'Reilly have a go in a midfield pair, but again, maybe not against Manchester City. Dagan, any changes for you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the Veltman shout right back. I'd like to see, if Jorginho's fit, I'd like to see him at the 9. And I think I'd like to see Gruda at the 10 over O'Reilly. Hinshelwood over Ayari is in the chat, and that was a thought too. He's been a mixed bag at this spot, but I thought about, would Hinshelwood be the best choice in this game at left back? Just a thought. I wonder if we'll see Biscagli. Van Hecke has been sort of the man marker of Holland in the matches that we've played most recently against them and has done well. There's a part of me that thinks it would be really nice to have Coppola to win the ball in the air where Holland is such a problem. Coppola, we have not had a player in the air like him. I know Dunk can be that guy or was that guy, but the ball that Muniz scored on that just went over Dunk's head, I couldn't help but think Coppola sends that ball, to another part of the pitch.
It's funny, isn't it, Diggin? Your mind went to Coppola. Mine went to Shane Duffy.
Ain't nobody.
Oh, goodness. That's a no for me, Michael, in the chat. Suggests Milner in the starting lineup. That's a no for me.
Milner versus Rodri. Let's go.
I thought Milner, as I've already alluded to in this podcast, blooming excellent against Oxford United. Manchester City will be too much.
Is Rodri injured again? If I remember reading. Or is he still okay?
Seamas on at like the 65th or 70th minute, though.
Yeah, you can guarantee subs coming on the 70th. You can put a bet on that. You can put your mortgage on that.
CMAS on the 0th minute, please.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I think we can all agree then that probably Welbeck doesn't start. It'll be interesting to see if Ruta is still injured. What will we do?
Yeah. Who else would start at 9 if Jorginho's not available?
CMAS.
Stefan on CMAS.
Start.
Yeah, I'd start him. I genuinely would, because I thought Welbeck looked so rusty against Everton. So it was like watching the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz. And I just think that with CMAS, I get it. It's a tall order. It's a big ask, a huge ask, a monumental ask. But he is such an unknown quantity at this level that could play in our favour. And he just might have a little bit more get up and go than Danny Welbeck at the moment. So, yeah, it's
How worried are we about Carlos's groin?
I'm always worried about Carlos's groin, to be honest. It keeps me up at night.
he looks not himself. Is anyone else seeing that? It was a great save off the line. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
It was a great save off the line, but he has not looked himself.
Yeah. But I'd still play him
be
because I think
the...
against Everton, the first half, I know he didn't have his best game, but we looked so much worse when he went off.
Oh, 100%.
So you need to start him unless he can't walk.
I agree.
Yeah.
Just I'm concerned.
Yes.
But I think given that he was involved in the squad yesterday is enough to believe that maybe Hertzler thinks that he is ready to be more involved in the squad, and I don't think he would have played him against Oxford if he felt like he needed to protect him a little bit. So yeah, Baleba, I think, and as well, obviously, all of this transfer talk around him has got to be sort of weighing him down a little bit. Wanting to stay.
I'm sure after last night, Joe.
That's true. Yeah, he's going to have a man of the match performance against Man City now, just to really rub it in Manchester United.
Can I pose a couple of questions?
Yeah,
they're quick ones. For the group, how many more players are outgoing? Do we have any more incomings?
3 outgoings for me.
Name them.
Buonanotte, Sima, and
Sarmiento.
What's the other one? Sarmiento. There you go. And maybe Lamptey.
I was gonna add Tarek Lamptey. Fiorentina are apparently interested. Yeah, let's hope Gruda not one of them. But I thought Geordie actually had a really good point. If he's not going to play or not going to start regularly, get him minutes. Incoming. I don't know. It all depends on Hertzler's view of CMAS. If he really thinks that CMAS isn't going to be ready for a while, I'd want to bring in another striker, even if it wasn't one of the old guards on a freebie, just to tide us over so Danny Welbeck can have a little bit of a break.
I am hearing Glenn Murray on a free contract.
Ooh, Glenda.
Chloe, what do you think? Are we bringing any more? Do you think Hertzler's happy with the squad?
I can't see us bringing in any more. The only thing is, if Lamptey did go, we might want somebody else that can play as sort of backup on the wings, wing back. But otherwise,
Well, there you have it, kids. There you have it. We have been chatting for an hour and 20 minutes. We have dissected the Everton game. We have talked about the goal fest that was Oxford. We got a bit waylaid talking about he who should not be named. And no, I'm not talking about Gus Poyet. Who's available?
Lord Voldemort. Sorry.
No, I'm not talking about him, the other one. Who's available? Do we need Zamora to get his boots back on? God, any chance to get Bobby Zamora back on the pitch, I will always take it. But no, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Just before we do disappear, I am going to ask each of the panel for a score prediction because, it's got to be done. So, Joe, I'm going to come to you first, please. Score prediction against Manchester City.
2-1 to Brighton. Repeat of last year, please. And I'm just going to say it. CMAS double.
Oh, Joe. Love it. Dagan, score prediction, please.
2-2.
Very good. I'd take it. I'd take a point. Chloe.
Dagan stole mine. I was going to go 2-2.
I was going to say 2-1, but Joe said 2-1.
Geordie, score prediction, please.
Me, I think it would be 1-3 to City.
Fair. Ooh, do I go head or heart? Let's go for both. Head says 2-0 to City. I think our goal worries will continue because I think we'll start with Danny Welbeck. But my heart says 3-0, Seamas with a double, Babis with a goal. The mythos will be flowing and we'll have a lovely time. I'm trying to be more optimistic this year.
Can I just give a massive shout out to everybody who has tuned in and watched today and got involved in the chat? It's always great fun, and we're doing these podcasts live permanently because of you guys, and you add so much to the show, and we absolutely love it. So thanks.
We certainly do. Thank you very much, as ever, the Albion Obsessed faithful, for tuning in, or if you're watching this after the fact, thank you very much for deciding to put us on. All that's left to say then is a goodbye and a thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening. And of course, wherever you may be, whenever you may be, I'll see you next time. Take care.